discussions, we have been talking about the bigger picture of interpersonal mastery. What does that look like? We've also talked about, a little bit more specifically, a way to make myself a more conscious, active participant in my own success and effectiveness in interpersonal mastery. In this final piece, what I would like to offer are some tools and some specific language. Language that, of course, with a particular tone and body language, are going to have a particular impact. And I find that this list is a great reminder for me to be more conscious of things that I can do in the moment to change the particular outcome. Mark Twain has a quote, something to the effect of, "I live in conversation, and sometimes other people are involved." Language to me is one of the most fundamental ways that we can create some presence, some consciousness about what I can actually do to make a difference. Over the years, I've gathered lots of different tools and items that I've seen have a great impact in interpersonal mastery. And I've noticed that when people switch from escalatory language to more language that de-escalates, the impact can be fantastic. As my role at Mountain States as a mediator, I see hundreds of examples of where I will invite people who are involved in a mediation to reframe things, and I've gotten direct feedback in that moment to say that the language is a way that can shift my intentionality immediately, and shift my body, and shift my emotion and intention for that moment. It's very difficult to stand like this and go, "I'm so happy." It's hard to do that. It's hard to do that because we have the misalignment. So wherever you would like to start, with your body, with your emotion, with your intention, and I think language is one way that we can do that. And we will explore this. So I offer these now as a way to open up the consciousness and try things, and to not only just pay attention to them for yourself, but in others, and notice how things happen. That would be another part of the interrupting the reactive cycle, is I don't just have to be an observer of myself, but also an observer of others. So let's give you a few examples. As I said, some of these could be a reminder, and I set them up this way just to try to keep it simple. All right. First one, certainly very simple, are you statements. So when somebody says you're a jerk, you suck, you're wrong. You statements tend to, especially if trust is low, remember the game, or the game on stress, tends to potentially escalate that situation and may get us off of our game. So saying you may escalate things unintentionally. The reframe would be, many of us have heard, I statements. Or starting with what you can take responsibility for, your experience. You don't understand. I don't necessarily know that. It doesn't look like they do, but I can't predict what they're knowing or doing. Saying, hey, I may need to say this in a different way. What I'm seeing is that I missed the mark, and let's try again. You statements, especially with things like negative judgments, assessments, assumptions, are going to definitely get emotion going. There is something about a subjective term, good or bad, that links straight to emotion for us and gets that emotional continuum moving. So when I use, even if like, you did a good job, happy, I'm happy, impact can be happy. Of course, in the workplace, we don't always say things like, you suck. We're much more sophisticated. We say, you're just not a good team player. You are just not great at communication, which are just all euphemisms for you suck. And they certainly can have an impact that we may not intend. Back to our delineator of trust being low. So the other side, and again, most of us probably have an idea of this. The other side, I statements accompanied with some data, examples. Examples, data, facts. Hopefully a little more objective than these. Well, nobody's going to be perfect at it, but it's a big difference to say you suck than, hey, when I saw this behavior, I had a problem with it. We'd also include potentially emotion. Workplace emotion, which probably been covered in personal mastery, but we don't have to lay it all out on the line. We don't have to be super disclosing. Workplace emotion can be, hey, I'm frustrated. That's not working for me. That is not okay. I am disappointed, concerned. Things that are reasonable. Keeping it simple. And all of this really gets back to communicating impact. Impact on us, rather than you did it wrong, you did it right, you don't know what you're doing. We can come up with all kinds of things. So, I statements, data, facts, emotion, feelings, like I said, does not have to be overly disclosing, but reasonable workplace emotions. So, we've got those. The next one, and these are a little bit more fun, and I like the fun ones because they can be great triggers to snap me out of my former, reactive cycle. So, a couple for fun. Should. Should is just a great reminder for me, especially when it's accompanied with a you. You should know better. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't, or I shouldn't have to tell you. You should know. And there is an I statement in there. I get that. And the should gets a little tricky. Just be careful. When I say, I shouldn't have to tell you, you should know, I just should it on you and I just should it on myself too. So be careful. And I forgive the pun, other than to say, it helps me remember it. Be conscious of the shoulds. That might be something where I need to reframe my communication in order to get more effectiveness out of it. Should, another one is but. That is a great idea, but might as well just say it sucks. But doesn't do a great job of acknowledging the other person. The reframe on it is and. I did a class the other day where I didn't even bring up this distinction between but and. A woman brought it up and told me that she's made a very conscious effort over the last, let's say, couple of years, because she had focused on that distinction. And she told me that, unsolicited from me, that she really noticed just what we're going for in our class on interpersonal mastery of, as soon as she felt herself about to say but, she shifted to and, she could feel it in her body. She was more open to that person. She was more receptive to their ideas, not putting hers on the back burner, and she noticed that a lot of conflicts changed. That's why I share this list, whichever one that you like, to be able to practice and shift, and to see what you notice about that. I like taking this list into a meeting that I'm not running, and just watching people talk to each other, and pay attention to that, and pay attention to the language people use, and the impact, and go, I wonder if that was what they were going for. I've got a couple more here that I want to share that we'll talk about. Certainly, and one of them is just closed-ended questions. Closed-ended questions versus open-ended. Of course, trust me, these are not, please hear me, I'm not saying you will never say any of this again. What I'm saying is, sometimes when we're in the game and under stress, some of these may not get us where we want to go. People say to me, what do I try? Let's try this stuff. So closed-ended questions, kind of the classic, come up to somebody and I say, all right, Jim, I need you to do a task. Here's what I need you to do. Blah, 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 blah. Jim, Did you understand that? Was I clear? Do you have any questions? The difference, of course, between a closed-ended question and an open-ended question, as many of us know, closed-ended questions evoke a yes or no response. Open-ended questions tend to get more information about really where Jim is about doing this project. It even gets worse. Sometimes I turn them into the closed-ended leading question. Jim, here's what I need you to do. You don't have any questions, do you? That made sense, didn't it? I was clear, wasn't I? I'm literally telling him what to say. And again, thinking about where does that fit on the scale of closed-ended of effective communication. He then goes off and does the task, and I come back. He doesn't do what I asked him to do. And I finally ask him an open-ended question and say, what the heck happened? Our work is, in this time, is to create healthier conversations up front so that we don't lose time on the back end of somebody out doing things that we never intended for them to do. And how frustrating, of course, for them to do the job, us come back and say, no, you're completely off the mark. And then I say, you didn't understand. You blew it. You didn't understand. Versus, hey, what's my part in that? How can I do something about it? So the goal here is to give you, again, some specifics. So closed-ended questions, right? Yes or no answers. Now I will say there is one open-ended question. Technically, why is an open-ended question? And why has the ability to evoke shame or blame. Now, so many people then say, Eric, what are you talking about? I ask why all the time. And I would say that if trust is high, the relationship is strong, then why probably will serve you fine. If, however, the relationship is not so good, it may not do you any favors. I'm only putting it on the radar so that as we go through our practice in interpersonal mastery, that these are tools and things that begin our conversation about conversations and how we can become more conscious and be more obviously effective and hopefully satisfied as well. So, just a couple of examples about open-ended questions. What and how questions, which, I get it, depending on your intentions. I mean, I could say to somebody, why did you do that? And the answer probably is not to say, what the heck were you thinking? Right? So, sure, there's plenty of exceptions. All I'm trying to introduce is a tool that helps me have greater awareness. And when the communication doesn't work, that I can say, where was I? Was I on this side? Was I on this side? And then when I come back to clean it up, maybe try some of these pieces and reflect and then get ready to clean it up. All right, a couple more. One, listening to respond. Listening to respond, again, kind of Stephen Covey is the first place I learned about this distinction versus listen to understand. Plenty of work we can do with that. There's plenty of intention around that. Am I just trying to listen to solve it, to fix it, to justify it, to minimize your feelings? Oh, you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way about that. Hey, the reality is people do. So we can do lots of work, lots of things that we can do with that. Listening to understand is really, you can listen to understand and not agree. You can listen to understand and not agree with the person saying and still help them feel understood. Clarify, paraphrase, all kinds of tools associated with that. All right, one more. Just the difference between a demand and a request or expectations. Needs. Right? So if I say to somebody, hey, I expect. Here's what I expect. And when I see different data than what I expect, that's going to have an impact. And I'm going to let you know about it. So this is not about being passive. It's very active. It's just being active in a way that is not at somebody else's expense or that potentially could escalate or erode the relationship. These tools are things, along with others, that we will explore further in our interpersonal mastery class.